Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights of this classic episode of the show. We're doing a quick trip in the Tardis. This is our second one. This episode is entitled, or the story arc is entitled The Time Warrior. It is the first serial of the 11th season. It's written by Robert Holmes, directed by Alan Bromley, and it first aired on the 15th of December, 1973, and ran through January 1974. The fourth part of this serial got the most viewers, 10.6 million viewers. So let's go around, introduce ourselves, and give your initial thoughts. Brian.
Hi, this is Brian. I think this episode's a lot of fun. It's good to visit the classic episodes. This is an episode featuring the third Doctor, who is John Pertwee. You indicated that this was the first serial of the 11th season. John Pertwee had also announced that this was going to be his last season, so that they knew that this was going to be the end for him. And I believe also it was the end for some of the production staff. This was the beginning of a crossover.
And a changing of the guard.
Changing of the guard. And right before this was the exit of the Doctor's previous companion, Jo Grant.
Oh,
I was going to say Liz, but no, that was the one that was before her. So Jo Grant had just left. And so now we're beginning the transition.
Yes.
Hey, this is Frank. This episode, it's odd because it's a different time period. So the way that they introduce the episode, they just put you right in there. And it takes you about 15 minutes to kind of get the flow of what's going on. And that was just a little jarring. I like the third Doctor. You can see some of the same qualities, but it's taken very differently. I like that they have Sarah Jane now. And I think she really stepped up as the initial role, that she made a lot of impact in the storyline.
Hey everyone, this is Kelsey. I thought today was an interesting exercise for a new Doctor Who fan to do. It's not necessarily one I would recommend. You've got we're used to the hour long or the 45-minute, and this was 4 20-minute pieces all put together, which for me was a bit long. I would have liked just one 20-minute half-hour story. But yeah, it was consistent. I felt like the Doctor was consistent with the Doctor today. His focus on humanity and lives and not messing with time. I mean, that was all consistent, and it was interesting, which we'll talk about later, Sarah Jane and kind of her similarities to companions today. So yeah, it was a fun exercise, but yeah, look, I'm excited to dig in and talk about it more fully.
Cool.
Hey, this is Auburn. I agree. I think initial impressions, getting to see the Doctor, I felt like the Doctor, I understood him the way that I understand the Doctors today. Felt like it felt, I haven't watched a lot of classic Who, but now I can see where some of those things from today are coming from. I'm sure we'll talk about budgets and production values, but overall, I mean, it was a pretty fun episode. We got to see some modern day kind of stuff and a lot of period piece, and got to meet some of the characters that we see later in the series that we're talking about.
Hey, this is Josh. I thought it was a lot of fun. This is the first classic Who I've seen.
Ever?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces here and there, but I've never sat and watched any before. And it was real interesting, like Kelsey was saying, to see the comparison to today. I was surprised at how similar it was. Just it's kind of similar in slow motion.
Yeah.
What a perfect way to describe it.
This is Eugene, and we all watch my copy, so I like this episode. I like.
You spent money on it.
I willingly paid money for this thing. Okay. Well,
that's why I'm friends with you. Doesn't cost me anything. I just borrow your copies.
So how did we how's this packaged, just for anybody else who's interested in seeing
how
it?
can someone see this?
They put I think this one is the anniversary version, because they did one at a time, Warner Brothers had the BBC Doctor Who rights, and they put out a version, but this one that I was able to get has the updated special effects, the 2 shots.
So this is just these 4 episodes.
Yes,
Correct.
Just a story arc. That's how they released them.
And when you look at classic Who releases, they're all pretty much by their serials. Each serial is its own DVD, and they're very expensive.
Oh,
Yeah.
Eugene.
And there are some, though, that they've packaged them together. I know that the first Doctor's first 3 serials are all packaged together, and you own that one. What's it called?
It's called The Beginnings.
The
and I do
Beginnings.
have that one.
And it contains the first episode, which is Unearthly Child.
Child.
Then it has the Daleks. Doesn't it have Daleks?
Yeah, it has the Daleks, and it has one more episode with
Yeah.
the TARDIS core going weird.
Yes. And those are 3 separate serials that are all on one DVD set. But for the most part, every serial is its own DVD. And if you look at the packaging, it's kind of nice because they always put a banner on the bottom that tells you what Doctor it is.
Which Doctor you're getting and what years his tenure was.
Nice, because I remember seeing a lot of classic Who when it was on Netflix. I haven't looked for it on Amazon Prime yet.
It's not there.
It's not there?
Not yet.
Okay. But I do
No, it's
remember.
gone. It used to be there.
Okay, so that's why I still see the entry.
Yeah, there
Okay.
used to be some classic Who on Netflix and on Amazon Prime and
Hulu.
mostly on Hulu.
Oh, yeah.
And they all had different episodes. Hulu had the most. It was one of the reasons why I got Hulu to begin with. And then recently, all the classic stuff has come down.
They're probably planning something.
Yeah, I think the BBC is going to have their own
Service.
Oh,
app.
So when we do see it again, we know that they're probably all grouped by serials so that we can feel like, because as I was browsing, I was like, well, I don't even know where to jump in with this. What does this even mean? But now I know that, oh, well, I can just start at the beginning of this serial and it'll take me through the whole
It
story.
will tell you a complete story. It might be a bit jarring at first, like this one is, where you
thrust in the
think
middle.
you've missed something, but they've really thrown you into the
mix.
Because the episode before this does not have anything to do with the story.
I was wondering because this was the first serial of season 11, and I felt behind. So I'm looking forward to your synopsis. Thank you, because I feel like I missed so much information in the first 15 minutes.
It's jarring, isn't it? We
yeah.
all feel that same way.
He doesn't show up for the first 15 minutes.
Well, when the first 15 minutes we see the Doctor, I felt like I was behind.
Oh.
And knowing what was happening, what's going on. I know a little bit about his relationship with Brigadier, but I had no idea why he was there.
That's just
what everyone was doing.
That's how it is.
And the funny thing is, that's how they wrote it.
Okay.
You think you're missing something, but you're not. They just wrote it that way and dropped the audience in the middle of this story. To me, this episode very much in the beginning feels like a soap opera, and it feels like I've just turned on an episode and I don't watch the soap
that's the
opera.
thing, that's
but it's
kind of-
not. But it wasn't that way, The previous episode was Joe Grant saying goodbye to the Doctor in the Green Death.
Well, just that's kind of a style of writing too, to make you be like, what is going on? So you keep watching to see if you'll find out what's going on. Then all of a sudden you've watched the whole thing.
Yeah, and eventually
Yeah.
you do.
you figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, to get into the episode synopsis. During the Middle Ages, Irongron and Bloodaxe complain that the castle they have taken by force is vulnerable from attack by their neighbor, Sir Edward. Suddenly, they see a falling star crash nearby, and it gives off an eerie glow. When they arrive at the site, they discover that it is a crashed spaceship. An alien warrior in full armor emerges from the spaceship and claims Earth for the glory of the Sontaran Empire. They take the alien, Linx, back to the castle and strike a bargain. They will give him a place to fix his ship in exchange for advanced weapons they can use to conquer Sir Edward.
I didn't know, because I didn't look at the DVD case or anything, that the Sontarans were even the bad guy in this. So I'm looking at it, and it looked different enough, and I'm like,
Is that
this seems familiar or whatever. And then when he started talking, whoever did the more recent Sontaran was doing an impersonation of this guy, because he sounded just like him.
Yeah,
and then eventually I was like, oh, this is...
We purposely did not show you the cover.
Oh, you purposely didn't? Oh, good, because I didn't get it at first.
This is the first Sontarans.
First time Sontaran.
And obviously they were... At least this outfit was designed to look a little bit like a knight.
Oh yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
So as opposed to I'm seeing it backwards, where I saw the more modern one first.
Yeah, with that blue tint to it.
Right. But you also, since we're going from the beginning of the show, you mentioned that the opening credits were the first time they did these opening credits, and they were crazy expensive for the time.
Yeah, it took them months to complete it, and there was some new split. Do you know,
Yes,
Eugene? I knew you would have it.
This includes a split scan time tunnel effect. This is also it also introduces the new diamond shaped logo, where before it was just it looked like this, where it was just the text instead of that trapezoidal diamond.
Right. That's
shape.
the logo I always think of when I think of.
Yeah, because that diamond logo stayed around for a very long time.
Yeah, the split scan is like what 2001
I was just gonna say
ended
that.
with. Yeah, so
They got inspired by 2001 to do this
Okay.
version.
I can see that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do like this main title was more ornate than 2001, I believe. Like there was just more
Yeah.
colors, more
Yeah.
like mixing.
Yeah.
2001 was very like
Stark
kind of line
and-
art
yeah.
for most of it.
I mean,
If I remember.
among other firsts in the opening segment or the segment portion of the episode is that it uses a part rather than an episode. So you get Time Warrior Part 1, Part 2 instead of an episode.
Yeah, they never did that before. Before each specific 22-minute episode had its own title. And they actually, when they came to bunching them up for release on DVD or
VHS even.
they had to come up with names. So like the serial called The Daleks, which is the first Doctor's second serial, it wasn't called Daleks when it aired. It was each individual episode had its own title. So this is the first time that they actually did Time Warrior for the whole 4 episodes.
Another thing that I thought was interesting about this title compared to the ones that we've had since the 2005 series is the focus on the Doctor instead of the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Were other main titles Doctor focused or TARDIS focused?
in this era, it's Doctor.
Okay.
You always had the face.
Yeah, you always had an image of the Doctor.
Well, Tom Baker had both.
Was it
Yeah.
Tom Baker's just like his floating head? Yeah,
Yes.
I remember that as a kid. I do remember that. So this intro was a little familiar for me. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of recognize this style of intro.
And then instead of his silhouette fading into the time vortex, you had the TARDIS for Tom Baker at one point.
Well, and they did change them
Yeah,
up,
they did.
but for the most part, going forward, everybody had their face in the opening credits,
Okay.
and then
And then I guess it's
it's only up
the
Capaldi.
TV movie.
Capaldi.
Well, the TV movie stopped that tradition, and
Yes.
then Capaldi kind of brought it
and then
back.
Capaldi's
Wait.
new things. You see Capaldi's image.
Wasn't there one with Matt Smith briefly? Anyway,
I don't remember.
Forget about it.
Yeah, we
That's too much.
we'll catch up to
Yeah.
Capaldi when we get there with the podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Podcasts are still around by then.
Another new thing about this and the opening of the episode, when the series was first launched, it was pitched as, we can be in the future, we can be in and then also tell history stories. And the producers quickly disliked the history stories because they felt like it was teaching and nobody was going to have fun with that. So they were banned for a very, very long time.
Banned?
Well, not like an unwritten rule, like don't do historical episodes.
Actually, I think they did write it down.
Okay.
And they said no more history
But
stories.
the episodes themselves, once done, were not banned.
No.
Right.
It was like a production edict.
Right. It
But
was like-
but it was like, no, we're not going into the past anymore.
Because nobody, they were not popular.
And then at the beginning of the third Doctor's episodes, he was actually he didn't even travel through space.
It was only time.
He was he was only on Earth,
Present.
present day Earth.
Oh.
Yeah, because they kind of, for various reasons. But then the Time Lords lifted that punishment,
Oh, no.
so that allowed him to use the TARDIS again. And this episode was the first history episode
Oh.
In a long time.
in a very long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No wonder they focused on just the history people for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So the studio put a ban on him not
Right.
going back in time and also not traveling in space. So they wrote into the script that it was the Time Lords that
Yes.
banned him
I
from
think
traveling.
they're for different reasons. The history episodes were frowned upon because it didn't seem like they were fun. It sounded like they were in school. So that came down and said no more history episodes. Then later on, I think they wanted to save money. And so they said, we'll write into it that the Doctor is punished and can't use the TARDIS for time travel. and so he was on Earth with the Brigadier and Unit.
Oh,
That's when
okay.
he was with Unit for so long. And then only recently before this was that ban lifted and the TARDIS could travel through time and space again.
This is the
Interesting.
Yeah, this is the version where the Doctor has a yellow car.
Okay.
Betsy?
Betsy, I think is the
Betsy
name
is
of
the
the
name of the car, I think, yeah.
car. Back to the Sontaran ship crashing. There's no impact crater. It
landed.
It
I was
landed.
able to land it.
Well,
The anti-grav still worked.
I'm just saying.
The
Well, the
crash
TARDIS
landing.
always crashes
Well, the TARDIS just appears though.
in a way.
No, I guess you're right. Yeah,
So
Well, I mean, a tennis ball landing in a field is not going to make much of a difference.
I think a big dog wasn't there.
I did like what Josh said about the voice that we're
Yes.
doing now with all the Sontarans are very similar to that. So it's almost an iconic voice, same as the Daleks and same as Cybermen.
I wonder
really
how
nice.
they, is it because of the restrictions of the prosthetic on his face that made him talk like that?
No, that's an inflection.
Okay.
that
Yeah,
was the
even
way
that-
that guy spoke.
That's amazing that
So,
whoever
yeah,
the
but
new guy
whoever
is.
that does it now was either a huge fan or just watched the hell out of this episode.
Well, he's also the reason we call them Sontarans with the accent on the second syllable.
Oh, instead of Santarans?
No, Sontaran.
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 Oh, I don't know.
Whatever, yeah.
It's a production thing. The actor playing Linx said, "I'm from Sontar." It's pronounced Sontaran to the director.
This guy?
Yeah.
And this actor, if you listen to the commentary on the DVD, they all loved him. They,
He was good.
yeah. Well, but it's almost like they thought he was a great guy and a great actor, like both. And so they were just like, oh, what he had to go through with that makeup and stuff, but he still was able to pull it off.
Linx was played by Kevin Lindsay. So hooray, Kevin Lindsay.
I also love the brief little thing when Lynx comes out and plants the flag. And I claim this for the glory of the Sontaran Empire. And okay, it's a wimpy little flag, but still, it's just hysterical.
Oh, that little thing.
Just flops out.
Yeah, but it's like, it's like I wanted, to hear Eddie Izzard, you can't take us over. Do you have a flag? I mean, it's just, it's so British where it's like, we conquered the world and we planted our flag and that's what made it go.
I did like how they did the science of it, where he has the weapon, which I think could be a sonic weapon, disarms Irongron, just out of
Yes.
that, and then uses something on his belt and uses that as a translation device.
Oh,
so he can
right.
understand what they're
Yeah.
talking about. Without explaining it, just doing it, oh, now he can talk to them. Okay, good.
Yes. Yeah. I think because a lot of the times I miss him fiddling with the device. And this time I was watching it going, oh, they actually did explain how he could speak English. Okay, good.
Yes, no, I noticed that too.
Yeah. I like that. I'm never one for quibbling about, well, how can all the aliens always speak English? Because it's a television show and we need to have a television show.
I'm surprised they didn't over-explain it. They didn't mention it
They
at
didn't
all.
mention it, no.
Whereas everything else in the episode is over-explained to ad nauseum.
But still.
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay. Back in present day, 1973, the Doctor has been called to a secure compound by the Brigadier to help with an investigation. Scientists have been disappearing, so the Brigadier has Unit guard them until they find out what is happening. The Doctor, using the name John Smith, meets one of the scientists, Dr. Rubish, and a young woman claiming to be Lavinia Smith, a world-renowned virologist. When he questions her about her work, the woman comes clean. She is really Sarah Jane Smith, an investigative journalist and niece to the scientist. Since her aunt could not come, Sarah Jane decided to pose as her so she could investigate the missing scientists.
So that's probably why you were confused in the beginning. You're just dropped into the middle of this thing, like things are moving along.
yeah, I think I
Yeah.
just missed some of the lines about the missing scientist, and I
don't think you missed
I
that.
didn't know why they were
Yeah.
there. I didn't know why anybody was there. I didn't know why the doctor was there.
There's a lot going on. That's
There's a
just
lot of
but
exposition.
it didn't matter,
Yeah.
I quickly got to see Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
And we had that line from her where she says, "You're not going to give me away, are you, doctor?" And does she say that in school reunion, or am I just
Do you remember
I
what
just
point?
no, I don't. Or do I just feel like I've heard that line before?
She said something like that when she was telling the doctor, well, I can still investigate a little bit.
Right. And then he says, like, the first time I met you, you were investigating me.
Before she knew that he was that he was the doctor, she's saying, "Oh, you're new. So do you know anything about what's going on?" He goes, "I think you're investigating more than this." He goes, "Well, there's no problem with snooping around. So it has that same feel.
Yeah, but I don't think she said those exact words. But the next time I watch it, which won't be long because I love that episode, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Why didn't they call her doctor? Why didn't they call her professor? She's she's supposed to be a scientist.
Yeah. Sexist.
It's sexist.
Very,
yeah.
and that pissed me off. And they kept saying Miss Smith.
Right.
It's just like, wow, okay, this is a whole different time period.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
Before
they were
Charlie's
out-
Angels, before Policewoman.
Yeah.
So it's,
Well, they were joking about it too. It wasn't like it was. That's the way things are. Like it was definitely they were making fun of the current time.
You mean from the doctor?
Well, they were all kind of quips about, women's rights here and there. Maybe
Yeah,
not a
no,
ton.
there were, but like Rubesh was very of that time. I mean, I think he was very.
Yeah, but I think that
a
was
woman's place is not here.
Yeah, but I think it was purposely written that way.
Yes.
Like being obvious that was the case.
Yes.
Not.
The writers were definitely making Sarah Jane to be a
Right.
strong character.
Right.
So they did have to have sexist comments in the beginning.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
that was also very realistic.
Yeah.
But the doctor made those comments, and well,
He's
you can be useful
tongue-in-cheek.
and make coffee. Was
Right.
he baiting her to
Yes.
just
Yeah,
test her?
yeah.
Was he?
Yes, the
I think
doctor
that
was
was
baiting
him
her.
being condescending, like he always is to new people.
But I also see it as what the doctor does. He's intrigued. He sees something in people right away. And I think by that point, he had already seen something in Sarah Jane.
Well, she got on the base when almost he couldn't.
Exactly.
He and the brigadier, who
Yeah.
were supposed to be officially there,
Yeah.
had a hard time
So
getting
he is-
on, and she's walking.
He's baiting her. You know, Joe Grant, he might have asked to make coffee, but still.
Oh yeah, that'd be funny if if Joe Grant was more subservient than Sarah.
Well, I mean, just from the history of the show, can I go off on this for a little bit?
Sure.
Just from the history of the show, the third doctor came in and he was going to start working with UNIT. There was the chief science officer of UNIT was Liz
Shaw.
Shaw. Thank you.
That's right.
And that was his companion for the first year. She was smart, she was just as smart, if not smarter than the doctor. And she only lasted a year. The producers got rid of that character because they didn't feel that was a good dynamic, that the doctor needed an assistant. So they brought in Joe Grant. Now, don't get me wrong. Joe Grant is also a really fun character. I mean, she's really early 70s and that,
Joe Grant's a
hippie.
woman. I'm expecting someone. I was picturing someone like Lou Grant in my mind.
Oh, Joe's very much not like Lou Grant, but no, she's this like tiny little blonde, just almost not
She's got
Twiggy.
spunk.
Yeah, she's
kinda like
spunky.
Twiggy.
She's kind
She
of like
looks like
Twiggy.
Twiggy.
Just that late 60s, early 70s kind of elfinish look. And so she's a really good character too, but her role at the time was the doctor needs this, you go get it for him. And the doctor comes and gets you out of trouble. And there were times, I mean, she wasn't completely hopeless. There were times when she figured things out on her own. And I know I've seen her last episode, which aired just before this, and she is very proactive in that episode where she's like, no, doctor, we're going to focus on this. And you find out that really is the real problem. So when they got rid of Joe, it was the producer's intent. We want the doctor to have not necessarily an equal, but we want the doctor to have a friend. We want to write a companion who can actively move the plot forward without the doctor. She can do it on her own as well. And that was a great leap forward for Doctor Who. So Sarah Jane's very, very progressive.
She definitely has a presence, and
Yes.
and now that you mention it, I kind of feel she drove this story more than he did.
Yes.
I agree.
I totally agree. And Liz Sladen, who is the actress who plays Sarah Jane, said she wanted to play Sarah Jane as scared but brave at the same time.
That's what bravery is. Bravery isn't about not being scared.
So what you do?
This TARDIS looked a lot more beat up.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was-
Oh yeah.
And why didn't
Yeah,
it say
why
police
was that?
box?
Excuse me?
It did,
Why didn't it say police
It didn't
box?
say it at the top.
Every TARDIS is a little bit different.
So it never did. His never did.
He never really used
I
it.
didn't even notice that, to be
Yeah, it
honest.
didn't say police box, and then we also never went inside it.
That happens a lot.
That's
Does it?
the old
With the
show.
classic.
Because they don't want to spend the money to build I mean, they have the set,
Yeah.
but like,
They cheated it.
we might, if we film on the TARDIS existing set, we can't film this scene over here.
right.
So they'll go and film that scene. There's a lot where they don't go into the TARDIS.
Wasn't Eccleston's the first time you could actually
Yes,
see into the
that was-
TARDIS with the whole scene outside?
with the
With the door open, that you can have some kind of look into it. That's why it's always on the side.
I was just going to ask, was the cultural presence of police boxes, was that closer to Sarah's time period?
Well,
like where the 70s? Because she called it a police box without
Well,
any
even Eccleston,
adornment.
in the 2005, they referred to it as being from the 60s.
It's from the 50s.
When the show premiered in '63, police boxes were common. They were becoming less and less common. But I think by Sarah Jane's time, people still knew what they were.
So you didn't need to say it.
Right.
You just knew what it was. It's not like a fire hydrant says fire hydrant.
It's a little odd. It's in a
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Like,
But
what is this
yes,
police
yes,
box
yes.
doing
even
inside?
even though Rubish looked like he would have lived 20 years ago, he still doesn't know what it is.
Well, he did. What is it doing here?
Yeah, what's it doing here?
I carry everything in there. Well, that's odd.
And he uses it as a chalkboard. I don't know if we're there
awesome.
yet, but
Well, a phone booth
That makes me laugh.
used to say phone, like as if we didn't
Yeah.
know what it was going to be.
yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but before Rubish writes on the TARDIS like a chalkboard, you can see that they've erased it, so they've already
really?
practiced. It's just funny.
They were probably like, "Is this chalk even going to work on this? I'll give it a try. Is that going to erase? Is that going to come off of there? I don't know. Give it a try."
It's beat up anyway. Right?
That's right.
So you're saying the prop masters in England were from New York?
Blimey! Has anyone tried this chalk on the side of this? What's it called again? It's called a TARDIS. I don't know what it's called.
Much better.
Dick Van Dyke over here.
I did want to mention the wonderful camera zoom
Oh, yes.
in onto the doctor's face.
That's right. What did he say? What was that?
I don't remember the line, but
Well, the brigadier's putting all of the scientists into the place all in one basket. And he goes, "That's great. Zoom in, unless someone steals the basket."
And it came so shortly after we had another zoom in.
There was a
on
lot.
the Sontaran. Oh, did it keep going and I just got used to it, so I didn't
Maybe.
notice it as much? Because I feel like I just remember those two at the beginning. No, I
notice
just got
that.
used to it.
I even wrote a note about it.
Because it did, I remember some other zooms, but
it's funny.
it wasn't as noticeable because I think we all got
we
used to that
just
style.
react
And
like-
all the musical stings.
Yeah.
that weird thing when they're in the medieval times.
Yeah.
Like, what
I
is
was
that?
just waiting for the sound of coconuts. That's for the horse. The hoof footsteps, whatever. I did not like how casually they revealed the Doctor. It was like you said. It was like we were in the middle of a scene, especially for the series premiere. He hasn't been there for 15 minutes or whatever, and then he just comes in mid conversation. Especially with that look of video, which I'm sure we'll talk about. It just it was very anti.
Climactic.
Well, I guess you wouldn't call it a climax, though, but it
Yeah.
just did not have the proper drama.
But in the 70s, season premieres weren't that big a deal. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
It wasn't any
Oh, it
different
was
from
just
any
like
other
you're already
episode.
familiar with this, so it's just
Yeah, because there
Right,
really wasn't. It wasn't until Dallas that there were cliffhangers.
right.
Before it was just we made episodes.
Oh, this had
and then,
cliffhangers. This one.
Well, it's a
did.
serial, so
but
that's why.
the serials.
But you're
but
talking
the
from season to
this-
season.
there wasn't a
a season. Yes,
season to the next season. It was just okay. Now you
Move
don't
on.
get a new episode.
All right. A squire of Sir Edward's is captured by Irongron. Linx uses a beam of light to hypnotize the squire, who tells them that Sir Edward has only a few men and cannot defend against an attack. Meanwhile, Sir Edward's wife, Eleanor, convinces Edward to send Hal, an archer, to kill Irongron.
Hal.
Did you like Hal?
I liked him. I think he's got a silly name for someone from the Dark Ages.
Do you want to know where you've seen him before?
You know that actor. You all know that actor.
From Doctor Who?
No.
No.
Oh.
From sci-fi in general.
Well, you
did
you
look
may have never
familiar.
seen his face, but you know this actor.
Jeremy
Oh,
Bullock.
I was gonna say.
Jeremy Bullock.
It's
No
Jeremy
way.
Boba Fett.
That's Boba Fett.
Oh.
Yeah.
The original one?
The
Yeah,
original
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Not the New Zealander.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say who I was thinking of. when
That's
you-
okay.
And Hal was a very common name for Henry back in that day. Henry, Harry, Hal.
Gotcha. Well, they're cool. Well, fine. I got to see Jeremy Bullock actually act.
Well,
Hey,
I mean, he looks like he can really shoot a bow and arrow. So
yeah.
he actually felt the least over the top out of everybody. I think.
I think-
All right.
No.
I think
Moving
Rob-
on.
Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark in the beginning, that conversation, that was pretty over the top for just jumping in.
they were eating up scenery.
They're reflecting the Middle Ages. No one can read.
Right.
They can't read the
Right.
note that the Sir
Yeah,
Edward's
that's
sending.
funny.
They also talked at the beginning that they're not doing well in that castle. They've got bad wines gone bad.
Oh, I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
bad
the
meat.
foods.
The
Yeah.
meat's not fresh.
And that they're all scared to go out in the dark because they don't know what demons lurk
Right,
at
right.
night.
Yeah.
And they're setting it in its time because they were saying that Irongron took over that castle. So he's a robber baron.
Yeah, I was
so
gonna say
he's
robber
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he because the
lords,
king at the
nobles.
time, and they never say who the king is, but is off fighting his own war. So he had collected all the good knights and soldiers,
Oh.
and they're off fighting their wars, which is kind of the Crusades probably. And then they also mentioned that Irongron says he can't read Norman. Sir Edward is Norman, and Irongron is probably Anglo-Saxon. So that also sets the time period too, because they're on the outs.
But they did do a good job of avoiding any overly educational
Yes,
beats.
and that was intentional.
Yeah,
you will do a
yeah.
history, but you
Yeah.
will not do a history of real people.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the history moments themselves, like nothing's like there's no little cues there to like latch on to like, oh, like I
Right.
mean, I guess with the Normans and the Anglo-Saxons, but they're definitely steering clear from pointing it out at all.
Absolutely.
Trust us, there will be no learning in this
Yeah.
episode.
I like Lady Eleanor. She's the one who decides what's going on. She's the
Yeah.
And now that you mentioned between Sarah Jane and then Lady Eleanor, because we have been talking about in the newer version how strong all the women characters are. How this is really, even back then they were like putting that in there.
Yeah, they put it in where they could. And Eleanor is definitely much more effective than Edward.
Probably trying. They wrote it in such a way that the executives weren't aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to hide
They
it.
snuck it in.
I also thought she, as an actress, did really well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's the most believable of that whole group.
So the doctor sets up a device to notify him when it detects delta particles. It goes off, and Professor Rubish vanishes from his room. The doctor follows the trail of particles and sees the form of a Sontaran before it vanishes. Linx has some command of time and can project himself into the future for a very limited period. He has been taking scientists and equipment so he can fix his ship. Sarah Jane, looking for Rubish, enters the Tardis. The doctor calculates when the Sontaran is and takes the Tardis back in time and space. Let's discuss the editing here. Because
When he shows up,
when Sarah Jane goes into the TARDIS,
Oh,
I'm sure when they filmed that, it was supposed to be when the doctor was out in the hallway looking at the Sontaran, but they didn't put it there. The doctor is actually back in the room, and the Brigadier is in the room, and they're standing right in front of the TARDIS, and Sarah Jane is, Dr. Rubish, are you in there? And walking into the TARDIS, and neither of them react to it. It's
Right.
just
I'm
kind of
glad
funny.
you brought that up because I thought I had looked down and missed her walking behind them. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I guess I must have missed. So they're back. She did walk behind them. I mean, like
Yes.
you can justify that bad editing by saying like they didn't notice her because their backs were to her and they were so engrossed in their conversation. But yeah, it probably was supposed to go in the scene when he was in the hallway because
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
Why
Because
else would
also
he
if you look at how she's acting, she's not acting as if they're standing
She's not
5 feet away.
sneaking.
Yeah, she's like, Dr. Rubish, are you in there? I mean, she wouldn't speak if they were like right there.
Yeah.
For those of you who can't see, he's actually knocking on air as he's saying that line.
I talk with my hands.
And they mention a matter transmitter, which we've heard before as transmat in the 2005 series. So a lot of stuff is still in continuity. It's kind of cool.
I like that Sarah Jane was a stowaway on the TARDIS, and the Doctor didn't invite her to come along, but she, in a way, she didn't know what she was getting herself into, but in a way, she invited herself,
Yeah.
and that was a cool character.
Yeah. Active
Element. I like
participant. Oh, and when Professor Rubish is abducted, they don't take his glasses with him.
right.
This will be important later,
Yeah.
or not important.
You should also point out the origin of his name.
Rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's rubbish. So they decided to just call him Rubish.
Yeah. The Doctor exits the TARDIS and heads toward Irongron's castle. We're now in the Middle Ages. Sarah Jane exits a moment later. She hunts around for a phone to call for help. She comes across Hal, distracting him as he releases his arrow, which just misses Irongron. They are both captured and taken to the castle.
Sarah.
She thinks she's in like an amusement park or something. I think that's
It's an
fun.
obvious joke, but I like the way she played it. Like, because I was thinking, like, the idea of time travel isn't even an idea in her head. So why would she possibly think that this is anything weird?
Still, you don't go up to somebody with a bow and arrow that's about to shoot. Excuse me.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, I mean, there's obvious jokes, but I think I guess what I'm saying is she played it well because it wasn't like she wasn't, like you said, chewing obscene or like, what's going on? What are you dressed like this for? Like, even though she was trying to figure it out, she was also playing it like she was trying to get to the bottom of the situation as well.
Well, she made her own conclusions of what's happening.
Right,
She
right,
quickly
right.
put together like, oh, well, they must be in the middle of, this must be a Renaissance fair or something.
Right.
And-
Yeah. I mean, you can't not address that. So, and I also think, I mean, some of the stuff that was written for those lines was kind of cliched, but it was 1973, so I think that just this whole idea was somewhat more new to see in such an accessible way. Mm-hmm. Now we have a glutton of time travel shows and movies.
The Doctor then follows her in, and he steps on the loudest twig possible.
The Doctor didn't step on the twig.
I think he did.
I think
he
that's
did.
that's what the editing makes it
how
look
I-
like. Yeah,
That's how I read it. I read it. He was sneaking, stepped on a twig, went to go hide because he stepped on a twig, so he needs to take shelter now. Because
I took it as the twig was a Sontaran. Or
I think you could see it both ways.
but
So
either
leave
way,
your comments. Did the Doctor step on the twig, or did the Sontaran?
but either way, the loudest twig in history.
Well, Sontarans are heavy.
There you go. That's right.
Sarah is brought before Irongron, fighting all the way. Linx notices that her clothing is from a future time, so he uses his hypno beam on her and finds out about the Doctor. He then presents Irongron with a robot suit of armor.
Ugh.
Irongron was going to kill Hal himself, but decides to test this new killing robot instead. He takes Hal out to the courtyard and tells him he will be free if he can defeat the knight. Hal shoots 2 arrows into the robot, but it still advances. The Doctor grabs a crossbow and shoots the remote control from Irongron's hands, stopping the robot. Sarah Jane, now free from the trance, grabs Hal, and they both escape. There's something about this episode that just makes me want to read it and fighting all the way. You will be free if you can escape the robot.
Yeah, that robot was so bad. It's like it can only do one action: walk and chop.
No, I know. Well,
Because so obviously the stunt man's head is in the chest of the robot.
you know. Also, it's just all. It felt like all the staging. There was a lot of good things about the making of this episode or episodes, but it was a lot of the staging and the blocking and the choreography that just pulled it back to the campiness of what it is. I thought the costumes were actually really good
Oh yeah,
for the most part.
I think the costume designer went on to do more stuff and even win Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
yeah.
They were. I mean, I was looking at everything, and it was,
No, actual Oscars. Went on to be a movie.
Okay.
nothing looked fake for the most part. I did notice a few little things, and the wigs were what they were. But
Yeah.
those were wigs.
But with the choreography and stuff, they just didn't have the time.
Right? Yeah.
You know,
No,
I
like
mean,
that-
these things were just like, get in, get out, get in, get
Yeah.
out.
No, I get, and I also think too.
Yeah.
Back then, television, not much was expected of television, and I think that's why when I was a kid, I had a hard time watching it, because even though the A-Team was just as cheesy, the filmmaking made it seem less cheesy, and it was a lot more snappy. So as a kid, I didn't get the cleverness because I was a kid, and the pace was so slow, I didn't care. But now I can appreciate
Yeah.
the charm.
Yeah, it's definitely the pace is. We're not used to that kind of a pace anymore.
Yeah.
Like later on when they're having the sword fight, which you'll get to, and they say he's the best swordsman I've ever seen.
like okay.
Or even when they go to hand the Sontaran the weapon,
The rifle?
the rifle, and he's like can't find it because he can't see.
He's probably looking for the on switch.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would watch these old ones now, hoping to see stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also some great Sarah Jane stuff going on here.
Yeah.
This is where she's trying to figure it out. She's scared, but she's not freaking out. Honestly,
It's quite layered.
when I watch it now, this Sarah Jane reminds me a lot of Rose. Mm-hmm. You know, I see a lot of the same characteristics in Rose that they wrote for Sarah Jane, where it's like, what is going on? I have no idea what's going on, but I'm not going to go crazy over it.
Right.
But she's better at deducing than Rose. At
Yes.
least in the beginning.
Rose
Yeah,
is
I
only
would agree with
19
that.
years old.
Yes,
My apologies to our 19-year-old listeners.
but you're not that good at deducing.
This hypno beam, I'm wondering if it's a sonic device. Because,
We said ocular. That's why it didn't work on.
but that's the part. What could be?
That's why it didn't work on the Doctor on Rubish.
But
Didn't have
the
his gland.
sound changes depending on
The function.
the lighting. Maybe maybe it's both, because it's the low hum hypnotizes, and that's more of a low light, and then the high intensity red light that comes out of it is a high pitched noise, and that's more of an attack. Attacks the axe and destroys that.
The
Well,
sword.
it just sounds
Sword.
more. It's more aggressive.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's one device that does multiple things. It's not just hypnotizing. It's not just
Well, the
that.
sonic screwdriver was a thing by this point, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
doc- the
so it's
doctors have
probably a play on that other worlds use that type of
it.
technology.
Right. It's showing the Centaurans' technological advancements. It's not
It's also
just
a
Time
cheap
Lords.
sound effect.
We also
No, but it's just not Time Lords who have this device.
Oh, that's
Sonic
oh,
or
right.
Alright.
It's like
It's-
if you want to
they're
expand it to
they're more unequal with the Time Lords in some aspects.
Okay. Yeah, that they
You know,
actually are
a
a
threat,
powerful
they have
race.
power.
except they have trouble using their hands to grab anything.
Well, that's because of the gravity.
Oh, is that why? Yes.
On
They
high
only
gravity,
have
boy, they're
3
nimble.
fingers.
That's
gloves.
They only have
The gloves
3
are
fingers. They're like
strict
claws, lobster claws.
And the Muppets did just fine.
Yeah.
The doctor breaks into the dungeon, which has been converted into a workshop, and finds the damaged Sontaran ship and the hypnotized scientists who are repairing it. He sees that Linx has created rifles for Irongron and knows that the advanced weaponry will destroy the timeline. He finds Professor Rubish, who is unaffected by the hypnobeam, among other things. The professor left his glasses in the future, and his terrible eyesight meant the hypnobeam did not work on him. Linx returns the capture and captures the doctor. Linx places an electrical device on the doctor's head, which will shock the doctor if he tries to remove it. But after Linx leaves, Rubish is able to turn it off. The doctor searches the castle for Sarah Jane, but is chased by Irongron.
This is a momentous moment. No, serious. Something happens in this scene for the very first time, and it's huge.
Can you read that again?
No.
The doctor names his home planet.
Oh, really?
That was big for the
Gallifrey. That is the first time
time.
Gallifrey is mentioned ever.
Interesting.
Oh.
I also thought it was interesting in this scene that, or not so much interesting, but familiar to me that the doctor gave him a choice where he was like, hey, I will help you fix your ship. You
Yeah.
don't need all these scientists. Just
Right.
return them back to their own time period. Stop giving the guy guns because it's the wrong time period for him
Yeah.
to have guns, and I'll help you fix your ship
Yeah,
and
get back home.
get you out of here.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, that's the
consistent.
doctor I know. That's cool. That even back then, or I don't know who's. I guess it's more like it's cool that when they did the reboot, that they kept that theme and they were
The inherent
yeah
goodness of the
of
doctor.
the doctor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I love Doctor Who. That you always have this main character who won't conquer you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the right word. You know,
Yeah.
but like won't beat you up. You know, even if you're really despicable,
There's a choice.
I'll send you home. We'll get you home. We'll get you
It's
back.
like the Prime Directive.
Yeah, okay.
Was it in this scene that he also mentioned the Time Lords are responsible for their? Oh no, that's when he was
With
talking to
Sarah
Sarah
Jane.
Jane. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're going to get there. We haven't gotten there yet.
Going back, the doctor, doesn't like guns, but this shows that he's a good shot. He used a crossbow and shot
Oh, yeah.
the remote control out of the hands. Didn't hit him, didn't hit the hand.
Yeah.
So he may not like guns, but he's still a good shot. He could use one.
And it also depends on his incarnation.
And also, the third Doctor did have a gun, or used one.
Occasionally the Doctor has used a gun. The fourth Doctor used guns, not all the time. Don't send nasty emails to me.
Yeah.
But there were times when, he would walk around carrying a rifle if he needed to. Sarah Jane and Hal return to Sir Edward's castle and tell them that the Doctor is aiding Irongron. Sarah Jane convinces them to kidnap the Doctor, and she and Hal head back to the castle. They overhear Irongron's plan to attack Sir Edward's castle on the morrow. Irongron is about to split the Doctor's head open, but Hal shoots Irongron's axe, allowing the Doctor to escape.
He's no good to me dead.
Linx tells Irongron that the Doctor is a threat as long as he is free.
Nothing on that. All right.
But just Sarah Jane's really involved in all this.
Yeah.
She kidnaps the Doctor.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, and just that she's sort of leading the way. She kind of not manipulates, but because she's trying to do something good, but she manipulates the king and the queen for whatever into doing what needs to be done. Telling them what they need to hear in order to get done what needs to be done.
Well, that's because Sir Edward is so passive.
Right. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, but
what
Eleanor
can we
gets it.
do? How horrible!
Yeah, but Eleanor gets it.
Eleanor uses it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Eleanor.
But then
isn't that
Sarah
when
Jane's like, no, we stand up, we fight, we go do this.
But isn't Eleanor saying? Oh no, it might be later. Because there's at one point where Eleanor's like, "Oh, they're gonna blow up. Good, let them die."
Right.
But that's later. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I just like that. I like how because when the Doctor's not on screen, it's her job to be on screen, to be active.
Right.
And move the plot.
Yeah. And just the fact that, like, you're seeing the Doctor's a good shot. I don't know when we're going to get to talking about this, but I really like this Doctor. I got a big kick out of him. I think, some of the awkwardness of the staging and things like that make it a little, this old fella doing these things. And if it was...
Excuse me, it's Venusian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, okay. I wasn't talking about just the fighting. Even the running around. But just his quips and the way he's owning this personality, and it is very much like the Doctors that I'm familiar with in 2005 and up.
John Pertwee loved the Doctor. He
did.
loved playing the Doctor.
No, I could tell. tell. And he all the humor's there. Like I said, it's just like slow motion. But I dug it.
This series of 4 episodes is about 2 hours, which is about the same-ish amount of time as the 8th Doctor and some of the others for their initial take. This, because you guys haven't seen any of the other Third Doctor's roles,
right?
Gives a good feeling of who this Doctor is. You get him, where you don't get it on some of the others. The 8th had a hard time trying to decide who he was when we saw the movie.
12th.
The 12th Doctor. It's trying to figure out what is this Doctor going to portray? What are his likes, dislikes? What are those type of things?
Yeah, and the 6th Doctor was busy murdering his companion.
Well, but you got it.
Yeah, I think you get a good sense of who Sarah Jane is too by this point. She takes charge. She may not get the right answer right away, but at least she has some type of answer. She comes up with some type of answer. The Doctor's the bad guy. We've got to kidnap him. And I love when he's like, "Oh, thank you for coming to my rescue." And she's like,
What?
"Rescue? This is a capture." I got a kick out of that. Like seeing
For somebody out of time, she was able to do something and convince everybody. That's big.
Yeah.
And when she finds out that she's wrong, she can switch quickly and go, okay, but we still have to do what's right. And she's not held up on her own being right or, no, I thought you were bad. She's like, okay, this has changed.
I was
Situation
wrong.
changed. Let's go with it.
I'm very curious to see the other classic companions compared to her, because to me she feels current.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Which is obviously why she's stood the test of time, but I'm curious to see the difference.
And this is why those of us who've seen some of the classic episodes, when she came back in school reunion, we're like, it's Sarah Jane. I was like, she's back. They can do stuff with her. That's great.
Yeah, and that's not taking anything away from the other companions. They're all great in their own right.
No, I know.
But there really is something special about Sarah Jane. There really is. And I don't know if you could ever put it into words, but there is that, it's like, it's Sarah Jane. Don't mess with Sarah Jane. She's awesome.
This is her first outing in 1973. And then we get her back in 2006, and she's still the same person doing the same thing, investigating, figuring out what's right, what's wrong.
And yet in School Reunion, she's a little bit different because of her, you know,
She's
she has
aged.
aged.
Yeah.
And she, you know, oh, I got old. Yeah, but it didn't stop her.
No.
But she acknowledges it, which again is just a great thing for Sarah Jane. She's not trying to be something she's not. She's like, no.
We may go back to some other quick trips and see Sarah with another doctor. And then I want you guys to watch School Reunion again and see if it changes for you. Now that you know
Oh,
the
that'd be a
character.
good experiment.
Well, even in School Reunion, I knew who Sarah Jane was because of Tom Baker. She was his companion. But yeah, I would love to go back and rewatch School Reunion.
Back in Sir Edward's castle, the doctor convinces Sarah Jane that he is not working with Irongron and tells her about Linx. Hal warns Sir Edward about the plans to attack, and the doctor says he can make it look like the castle is fully defended. They get the entire castle population to make dummies to place on top of the castle walls. While they prepare, the doctor and Sarah Jane have time to talk. He tells her he is not human and explains to her about the Tardis. So this is that thing we were talking about earlier where they're talking. And
Yeah, this is a good scene because it's exposition, but I still think it's kind of interesting. He's telling her about the Time Lords.
Are there inspectors or something?
They're
or ticketers?
they're galactic ticket
That is it.
inspectors.
That's it.
Yeah. So which goes along with they do their best to, I mean, maybe not non-interference is the right word, but to make sure that things don't go wrong.
What do you say, like illegal time travel or something?
Yeah,
Something like that,
legal
yeah.
time
Yeah.
travel, yeah.
So they're sort of policing time travel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was their,
Their edict.
yeah.
They're like senators.
They're pompous and they
Yeah.
know the best.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is also where we got some verbal mentions of the Brigadier being connected to Unit, I think, which finally, like, because I was not familiar with Unit or any of the classic Who stories, so this allowed me as a viewer to be like, oh, that's why these people were like not surprised when the
when he sh-
doctor like did all that stuff
When he shows up,
earlier.
yeah.
And has the TARDIS and
Or when he shows up in the 2005 series. Of course
Right.
they'd know who the doctor
Right.
is.
He worked for them. He had a job.
Yes.
You didn't have a job. I had a
Isn't
job.
there an episode where we meet Brigadier's granddaughter or daughter?
Yes.
Or
Kate.
Coming up.
Daughter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
with Matt Smith.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. That's
Yes.
why I knew who the Brigadier. How I knew about the Brigadier.
Yeah.
Brigadier.
Brigadier
Lethbridge
Stewart.
Stewart. The guy with the mustache and the uniform.
Yeah. And Kate in the modern era is Kate Stewart because she doesn't want to get favors because of who her father is. So I love the Brigadier. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's another one of the just
He just has presence
it's
and
just awesome.
charisma.
yeah. And I don't think you would get a character like that today because he stands for authority and following the rules, and you can't have that today because the kiddies wouldn't go for it. And also I wanted to mention this is an interesting thing here because Sarah Jane comes in and saying that all the women are sewing and
that
they're
here?
making the dummies.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
that's here. Yeah.
And oh well, you've got us doing all the work and you get all the fun. And I love the doctor going, you think making this noxious stink stuff is fun? It's like, no, he's still working. He's, you have your bit and he's doing his
yeah.
bit and it's all going to come together and work. And I just think that's a nice
Another
little,
A-Team reference. I love it when a plan comes together.
but it is kind of like,
TARDIS can animal.
it's like nobody's taking advantage of anybody else. Nobody's giving crap to somebody while they sit back and do nothing. Everybody's working. They even say that, Edward is painting the faces.
That's
and
right.
Is apparently good at it,
It took a while, but he got it.
He found something that he's good at, So I just, again, even this early in Doctor Who, you have those little things where they took time in the writing where they didn't have to put things in and they do. Love it.
I actually think this script, with a little tweaking, can be shot today almost exactly like it is.
Well, they almost did with the Capaldi episode.
Did they really?
Are you talking
There's
about
one, the Robin Hood.
Yeah, I was going to say Robin Hood.
Oh, that's true.
Hal reminded me of Robin Hood at one point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's just say we were watching the Robin Hood episode going, wow, somebody like Sarah Jane. Somebody is a fan of the Time Warrior. Irongron, Linx, and their small band of men arrive to seize the castle, but Irongron wants to leave after seeing it is defended. Linx convinces them to attack, showing that the guards are just dummies.
Are they?
Yeah, they're pretty stupid. Irongron's men begin to scale the wall when the Doctor and Sarah Jane begin throwing stink bombs down onto them. Hal begins firing arrows, and Irongron calls retreat.
This is what you're talking about, where our Linx gets the rifle and kind of fumbles.
Oh, that's right. He hands it to give me the gun, and they hands it to him, and he can barely see what he's
He
doing.
like grabbed for it.
The thing
once
is
or
they could have
twice.
cut around that. That's the thing that gets me, is that didn't have to be shown.
Well, you weren't there that day. It could be the lights going down. We got to get the shot.
But they could have
Didn't
avoided.
have the coverage.
But maybe that's the type. I wouldn't be surprised too if back then they were like, "Oh, that's funny. Let's leave it in."
But it's great noticing it now.
Oh, it's great.
It's like the PA should have put it forward more,
Right, yeah.
or he could have looked with his eyes. It's like
something.
so many things.
Well, and there was a couple. I mean, they weren't too worried about keeping like continuous flow in the editing already.
yeah,
like they
yeah.
could have just edited, like cut to him pointing it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
firing.
anything. I got a big kick out of when they were attacking the castle and they were just yelling. And then they cut to that big wide shot. It looked like the neighborhood kids with ladders. Ah!
Well, did you notice the length of the ladders?
Yeah.
They
What,
couldn't
how-
they couldn't reach the top of
Oh,
the window.
no, I didn't notice that. I just noticed, how
Nowhere
they,
near.
I just noticed how they were bending.
Yeah, they were bad. Yeah. If you listen to the commentary, Liz Sladen on it says, "Look at how many extras we had. We didn't have that many extras ever." You know, it's like, I can't believe how many people are in all these shots. It's like we would have had like 3 people and thought that was a crowded day.
There's a little bit here where Irongron is talking to Linx,
Yeah.
and he's saying like, "I
Well
have this,"
done.
yeah, and he slaps him on the back like, "Good job," and then Linx reacts because like that's his weak spot.
Yeah, little
I don't know if
foreshadowing.
I don't know if you guys caught that.
Yeah,
I
there's
did catch
foreshadowing
it, but
there.
I just thought it was like being annoyed at this. You know,
No.
primitive
That's how you're
creature.
supposed to take it, but then you learn later, dude.
Don't touch me there.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. I love that. I also love how the doctor is I'm just casually throwing the stink bomb over the hill. Oh, that's a good one.
And then Sarah Jane is hopping to see what's going on.
Yeah. And then at one point, doesn't he toss one to her and
Yeah.
she
She
throws,
throws
it?
it.
Yeah. This is just like, it just looks like they were having so much fun with
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that was their direction, but it was just like, we got to make this silly scene of tossing something. Let's just have fun with it.
They definitely had immediate chemistry.
Oh yeah.
Immediate chemistry, yeah. I love it when that happens, on Doctor Who, where it just boom, all of a sudden something clicked. Again, in the commentary, Liz Sladen talks about her casting, and they talk to a lot of different women, girls as they called them, and then she came in, and they were like, "Wow, let's introduce her to John." They introduced her to John, and
was
like
it.
2 seconds later, apparently she turned to walk out, and John Pertwee, the producers say, John Pertwee just looked at them and did 2 thumbs up. And that was it. She got the job. It was just instant with them. And then what's great for her is she carried that on with Tom Baker. And then, like we mentioned in School Reunion, when you see her talking to David Tennant, who she's never worked with before, you suddenly feel the history of the two of them.
She's talking to the doctor.
She's talking to the doctor.
Yeah, I
It's
also
just
think
awesome.
though, like mentioning if you're talking, I think Tennant, it's in his bones. Like he, you know what I mean? Because he was such a fan. Like I think he kind of channeled all the other doctors
Yes.
before him.
Yeah, but I see that, that's what he's doing. But
Right. But she
Elizabeth
also-
Sladen is still able to do it.
She could look at him the same way.
Exactly. And I'm sure that helped David Tennant going, Sarah Jane Smith is looking at me and calling me the doctor.
Right.
Wow. So
Yeah.
it's just what makes
Aw.
School Reunion so special.
When they arrive to the castle, Irongron chastises his men for running and says they will attack again tomorrow. Linx calls him out, stating that he was the one who led the retreat. Meanwhile, the doctor warns Sir Edward that Irongron will attack again. The only way to prevent that is to take his castle first. With the help of Lady Eleanor, they gather supplies for the doctor to make a sleeping potion. Posing as Jedi friars, whatever. The doctor and Sarah Jane enter Irongron's castle and head to the workshop. They notice that the ship is almost functional.
The animosity between Linx and Irongron is really growing
Yeah.
at this point. And Linx just bats him twice and takes him out. It's like,
Yeah, very easy.
yes. And he's like, okay, this guy is powerful, but he can't let anyone else know that. They're
Yeah.
just that ego that he had.
Yeah.
And those 2 guards at the gate.
Oh, yeah. I love how whenever you do a medieval story, somebody at some point is going to be disguised as friars. I was watching this and I was like, oh yeah, the Robin Hood episode of Next Gen. They're sneaking into a castle,
Or the
dressed as
Robin Hood
friars.
movie, Disney movie.
Yeah,
Right.
they're sneaking in dressed as friars.
Yeah.
It's just, I love
And the
this.
guard said, they're going to be dead. He's going to kill them. So go. And they
Right,
were laughing
right.
at that, even though it was badly
Yeah.
done. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure, go on in. Why not?
The doctor tells Sarah Jane that they have to stop the ship because when it takes off, it will destroy the castle and kill everyone in it. The scientists begin to collapse from exhaustion and malnutrition. The doctor tries to break the hypnotic trance by using a flashing light. Linx arrives and the doctor attempts to make a deal with him. He will help Linx repair his ship in exchange for releasing the scientists. Linx declines the offer and instead tries to hypnotize the doctor. Sarah Jane rushes Linx, protecting the doctor who falls to the ground. The doctor and Linx talk to each other about their weaknesses, and Rubish uses that information to knock out Linx.
I'm sorry. I thought he was trying to kill the doctor at this point. Was he trying to re-hypnotize him? Or not but like hypnotize him again?
Well, he did use the
red light.
he did use the red light, but I think he wants no.
He could have been killing him too.
No, I think it was attacking him with the red light. And I didn't
Yeah.
pick that up when
I thought
I...
he was trying
Yeah,
to
Yeah, I
like,
think you're right.
kill him and get rid of him. And then I liked how the doctor was like talking about his weaknesses because he saw Rubish was like going
behind
to the
him.
table to get some kind of weapon, and the doctor was just pretty much telling him like hit him in the weak spot
Yeah.
there. And
The
we'll be-
probic
yeah.
vent.
I love how Rubish made the monocle.
Yes.
So that he could
could see.
And just carrying it around in tweezers or some kind of pinch.
Something,
Or
yeah.
whatever it was.
For the
Just
glass,
as
he just
if
bent
you
it,
could
so.
carve a lens that would magnify
Correctly.
just a piece of glass.
Hey, well, he has a lot of modern material
That's,
and a lot of
you
modern
know what?
equipment.
You're right.
Oh,
You're
you're
absolutely
right.
right.
Polymers. He has polymers.
right.
I don't think Rubish is rubbish at all. I think he's very
love him.
helpful.
I like him as much
He's
as I make
very,
fun of
very
him.
helpful.
I like him. Like he shouldn't work. Like he should be dead because he's not. He's not hypnotized and he's not
Right.
working on
Why
anything.
wouldn't the Linx have killed him?
Yeah.
Like if he noticed that he wasn't being hypnotized.
Right.
Because he was always hiding or pretending to be hypnotized. That's what I'm saying. He's not
Did he
rubbish.
pretend?
No, no.
Did he pretend to be hypnotized?
But
I
it
don't
makes
know
me
if he-
laugh.
But we did see him hiding when Linx came
Right.
into
Yeah.
the dungeon at one point. And I'm just making the assumption, like Sarah Jane, that
Right.
where Sarah Jane makes assumptions about things and answers of things, creates answers, that he would pretend to be hypnotized whenever Linx was around.
But he still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
He also has a fantastic constitution because he doesn't even seem
Yeah.
the slightest bit hungry or thirsty. And to be honest, not that he would because he was the
How
last
do you know
scientist.
he's not sneaking up to the kitchens
Because you can't see.
and getting food?
Because did you see the serving wench? Yikes. But I explain it like he was the last scientist taken, so he's not hungry yet.
Right. Yeah, he hasn't been there that long.
Yeah.
He's been there about as long as the doctor.
Exactly. 'Cause
Maybe his bad eyesight prevents his eyes being bigger than his stomach.
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
Anywho.
I thought it was great that Sarah Jane saves the doctor.
Yes.
With
Yeah.
everything else that's going on in this
Totally.
episode, she's the one who intervenes. So that's
Oh
really
yeah,
great.
for the first time, and then we see her save him again a second time.
Just
in
now
the
when,
dining room.
The Sontaran Linx was shooting the beam at him.
That's the
she
first
do? I
time.
She
can't
grabs it
grabs-
from
Oh, she
him
just-
and wrestles him and then gets
I'm like, wow.
pushed aside in the damsel kind of way that
Right.
is done
Well-
then.
But still.
And so, one more thing about Linx when they're talking about their weaknesses, saying that the vent in back of them is actually a strength because none of their people can run away because they
Right.
have to face their enemies.
I love that. It's just like, you know, it's a great way to explain this silly way of defeating them by turning it into a really awesome character
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I could see the writer just being like, I need a silly way. Okay, you knock them out by hitting them on the back of the neck. Why? They can't run away. Yes. I could just,
And they use that in the
New ones?
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. What do we think about the dehypnotizing by doing the polka on the flashing
I got a
lights?
kick out of that. I found that very like current Doctor as well.
But there's a certain pattern that would
Yeah.
work. And it's
Was it-
Yeah.
the polka beat.
I love them unhypnotizing these scientists and then, but keep working.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the headbands that the scientist had. Is there a point to what was on their heads? Because at first I thought that was what was hypnotizing them, but when they became unhypnotized, they still kept those on.
It looked to me to be the same kind
Rubish didn't have one.
Yes.
It looked to me to be the same kind of device that was on the doctor's head that shocked him.
Right.
Yeah.
But
If
So
they
Linx
they never
stopped-
used
put
it.
that on?
Yeah,
But they never used it.
Well, the power.
I
of
was
the
surprised they never
hypnosis-
took it off.
Yeah.
The power of the hypnosis varied because Sarah Jane came out of it pretty quickly. So did the
Right.
The messenger. Yeah, Squire. That's it.
I think it was
who at the
probably
beginning.
just
So it's just that was just hypnotist to get information, and this is to make them do something. So probably it's a higher level.
The hypno beam has a strong influence on the weak-minded. And Sarah Jane's not weak-minded.
scientists are.
Well, that
British
one.
Those
scientists.
ones.
Those ones
Those
were.
particular scientists.
They can't even figure out to drive on the other side of the road.
That's Josh at Who Knew podcast.
Sarah Jane was wearing 3 costumes going into this castle.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's like on top of each other. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, really? Why?
In that heat. In the
Actually,
medieval heat.
when she pops back up within the pantsuit later on, her original costume, that was actually a mistake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that was outdoors, and so they were on location, and nobody thought to have a different costume for her. I think they even filmed it and didn't even realize it, and then they got pointed out later where it was like, oh well.
Well, they brought that just in case. Well, they went back to the Tardis.
To get the Tardis because they didn't bring
I'm
that.
fine
It's
with
coming
it,
up.
yeah.
They did go back to the Tardis before for the final attack on the
Yeah.
castles. But
I also loved her blue outfit. I thought that was a great costume.
maiden
Yeah, the maiden, almost lion and winterish kind of.
right.
I thought that was a great costume.
Sarah Jane goes to the kitchen to put the sleeping potion in the food. After a blood axe comes searching for Linx, the doctor knows he must buy time and sees the second robot knight Linx was creating. The doctor instructs Rubish on how to dehypnotize the other scientists and then dons the suit of armor and goes to the main hall. Irongron tests this new robot and is impressed until he discovers it is the doctor. Irongron leaves the now captive doctor to find Linx.
Filler. Filler?
Filler?
That you could have taken that whole part.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's so ridiculous to have the doctor in that suit. It looks so dumb.
What is it? Well, that's not very sporting now, is it? Or something, whatever the line the robot's supposed to say. Where it's just like, no, don't put arrows in me.
But they had to have I thought
it was a fun
the
scene.
fight was
It's a fun scene, but it's just kind of like,
plot wise.
Yeah, plot-wise, there's
why is
nothing.
he's getting into the robot suit, okay?
I think that was the action sequence.
He needed time
I
for them
know.
to keep working the hypnotist and to put Sarah put the food.
Oh,
And
that
I
so
was
bad.
surprised. I was, and then I learned that this doctor is a capable physical fighter because up till then he barely ran, except in the scenes out in the courtyard like Benny Hill.
That was a running double.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, still the doctor.
Yeah.
But yes, you could tell that he was an older actor, so he didn't move around much. So to see him do that, I got a kick out of that.
He's
Now
good with
I
the
know that
crossbow. He's good with the sword.
Right.
Later on, he's good with
he's not just
his hands, his fighting.
a thinker.
I did like how Sarah Jane questioned, who gets what food, and finds out that there's 2 different pots that she has
Yeah.
to put the
Oatmeal
sleeping
and meat.
Oh,
Yeah,
is
which-
that why the other guys woke up easier?
I think so because she had to divide and also it's how strong would the sleeping potion be? It's like they made what they
I
from what
found
they
out-
had,
I did
but
like
she
how
had to
she was
divide
like-
it into the 2 different one with meat that would go to the higher people in the court, and then to the guards on the outside get oatmeal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, look at that spider.
That was so bad.
I like
It
that.
would work on me.
Yeah, I know.
I found that scene in the kitchen with Sarah Jane talking to the
wench.
The wench,
Yeah.
or I. That's fine that you guys call her a wench. I wrote down cook, like
Well, she's
Yeah, she's in charge, but it's just
they call
Head
her. They call
cook?
her that.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a cliche, She's just the serving wench.
But that is a good conversation.
yeah, and it's very Rose-like.
She's not Mrs.
that
Patmore.
she's trying to talk to the women
No,
about
Abby.
independence,
Yeah.
and you're more than just a serving wench. You're more than just this, and yeah, it just makes me think that like when they were writing Rose, they
Channeled
they
this.
channeled
Yeah.
Sarah Jane. They're like, what companion in the original series do we want Rose to be like? And they were all like, Sarah Jane. Let's make her the Sarah Jane of 2005.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
I did
that's
like Sarah
great.
Jane's wording of, oh my gosh, you're acting like it's the Middle Ages.
And like,
wait.
oh, wait.
And she realizes it and like, okay.
I also like that the woman was like, what are we going to do?
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
This
she
is where
wasn't
we're
like, what are you talking crazy about? Like she said just what she
Yeah,
said.
but she's also, I mean, I thought she played it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too extreme. It wasn't like, yeah, rally the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
And that's the way that they respond to Rose every time too. Like, okay,
is
that's
just the
great
time,
for
yeah.
you, wherever where you come from.
Yeah.
But that's not for me. I can't do that.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like there's so many similarities in this.
But-
This
and isn't it-
serial that I can see why you guys picked this one for us to watch. It was slow. It was
yeah.
a lot of like back and forth. But if you think about what I would have originally watched this weeks apart, so I can see why the back and forth one. It just bothered me now because we were watching it all at the same
Yeah.
time, and they're like,
Right.
they're at this castle, and then they're at this castle, and they're back at the first castle, and
I know,
they're
the
back
castles
and
are
forth,
next
back
door.
and forth.
It's really 10 feet apart.
I do have to say, though, we're going to have trouble later on if she thinks this one is slow.
Well, those castles are next to each other, just like Metropolis and Gotham are across the bay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can see Gotham from the window of the Daily Planet.
it's
Sure.
ridiculous.
or on 24 when you get to Van Nuys to Burbank.
Irongron arrives at the workshop to find Linx bound on the floor. Linx joins Irongron as they return to the main hall and use the doctor for target practice.
That scene was funny to me.
Yeah. It was the stormtroopers firing. It was great.
It's like all these guys were promoted to stormtroopers after this episode.
I was sitting there thinking though, like, well, if they've never used this at all, like you probably could dodge a musket if you really needed to.
True.
Well, he could slow down time. We saw that in Eccleston's episode when he was going with
Oh, that's right.
Jade.
Yes.
With the fans.
The fans.
Right.
End of the world.
Thank you.
All right.
That's why we were.
I found it
I like
much
that.
more, as silly as it was. I found it so charming. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I find it charming, so I don't need to explain the stupidity of it.
And they laughed at it themselves, which is great because Irongron, it'd be better for you to stand still. You don't keep diving everywhere.
And runs to the doctor's aid. She sends a chandelier at him like a pendulum, and he makes his Errol Flynn-like escape.
2 feet off the ground.
Yes. And everybody just conveniently gets out of the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, that's right.
They just
What?
Yeah. Surgeon, here's
watch him go out. Oh,
Gee, I could grab his legs, but no.
Like, I've never
Like, you
seen
could
that
grab
before.
His chest.
Maybe-
He was so close to the ground. You could just stand in front of him. You're like,
But we've already shown that these people are wimps. I mean, they're scared in the dark, going out at night because you don't know what demons are there. You know, the smoke pellets have them all running and scurrying everywhere.
Maybe they were like, "Where'd that chandelier come from?" One guy's like,
I know.
"Oh,
I thought,
I
where did that chandelier come
yeah.
from?
we've been eating in the dark this whole time.
This is ridiculous.
Because I was wondering why, like when she untied it from the top, I was like, why would they tie a chandelier to the balcony?
So you can get access and light the candles. Shh, that's where we're going to
Oh, okay, very good.
I mean, we don't know why they got this castle,
That's true.
to be honest. 'cause
Maybe he thought it was an
they
eyesore.
took
to
the
put
castle.
that
It
thing
could
in-
be that most of the people are already gone.
Right.
You know,
That's how
because
I
of
take
the-
it. Most of the people are already
This
gone.
was the easiest take because there's only a few, very few, and so they could overpower just a little bit. They're not the best evil
they're
band anywhere.
I mean, I missed all of that exposition that you were talking about as far as how they have that castle. Like when we were just talking just a little bit ago, missed all that. I think I was just sort of getting into the world and
Because it was the first 15
figuring-
minutes.
and-
Yes, the first-
and
yes.
time you watch. I'm sure you pick
And
up
it doesn't
more.
ruin the episode if you miss it.
No,
but
I just they were like I said, I couldn't stop thinking of Game of Thrones in that first scene.
I do also think, too, like a lot of that stuff is shorthanded because for us, that's not our history.
right.
But it is for the people who would
That's
have been
true.
watching this.
If it was like
they would have, you know,
cowboys
if you had
and-
just said, "Oh, Normans invaded,"
right.
the British should kind of know their history enough. Like you said, like
you're right.
we would shorthand a cowboy and Indian story, where other areas of the world might not kind of get the cultural
Although at the
significance of it.
by the Middle Ages, no, forget it. Yeah, I'm saying, like no one came over to America yet. But that's pointless to my point.
Yeah, yes.
I digress.
I see your point, and yes, it's pointless, but I see the point.
Right. I do that a lot.
The Doctor, Sarah Jane, and Hal return one last time to Irongron's castle and find the guards asleep. The doctor goes to the workshop and shows Rubish and Sarah Jane how to work the osmic projector to return the scientists to the 20th century.
You think it was called the cosmic projector and they just had a typo?
Could be.
That's what it means now for me.
Sarah sends Rubish back and is at a loss when the doctor is unable to stop the ship from powering up because Hal shot the Sontaran.
No, not yet.
No, not yet? Okay.
No.
But he
Okay.
couldn't shoot hands.
Oh!
Oops.
So Rubish is gone.
He did a good job, though. He helped all the scientists escape, and then
I love how he's
was
like, I'll
great.
see you back at the
Yeah,
station.
he kept on talking. He kept on talking as he disappeared. That was great.
I like the other scientist, the one that he first notices is
he's
malnourished.
malnourished.
Malnourished. When he's in the thing, he looks so dead. He's like, "Moo."
He probably thought it's like when I used to point the video camera at my grandmother, and she would stand still because she thought it was a camera. No, you could wave, Grandma, and she would hold her hand up but not move it.
The doctor does state that he's over 200 years old.
That's
at
right.
this point.
Yes.
And they do stop up at the Tardis on the way back. So they brought Sarah's clothes and to get that silly fan, metallic fan that he knows.
it's a shield.
The
It's a
deflector.
shield.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect word for it.
What did she say?
Deflector.
Yes.
Because it bounces the...
They were like, "Oh, we didn't bring a prop. Well, do we have anything that bounces light?"
But opening it up outside the TARDIS to definitely know this is foreshadowing. This is it right here. We're telling you. So
They had a lot of spare metal leveler shades. Let's make that. And not to quibble, but Sarah Jane's clothes would be at Sir Edward's castle, not in the TARDIS.
I was saying the last time they're going back, so they just brought it and he's dropped it off.
Did they both go back?
No,
or
they
just the
didn't. But I'm
doctor?
just saying,
I thought...
since he had to stop there anyway to get the deflector.
Oh, you're saying so since the doctor stopped off to get the deflector, he got
He put her
clothes.
clothes there. He put her clothes there.
Go with it. Go with it. It's gone.
Linx warns Irongron that he is about to leave, and they will all die if they stay in the castle. I just have to read it this way. Irongron and his men begin to fall asleep. Linx returns to the workshop. How many times do people return to the workshop in this episode? Linx returns to the workshop and again battles the doctor. Irongron wakes to find Hal disarming his men, and he throws him aside, which apparently knocks him out. He goes to the workshop to confront Linx and stop him from leaving.
He knocked him out into a Sarlacc pit monster, that's why.
He does climb out later.
Later.
The rest of his men stir, and Hal yells for them to flee the castle. Irongron attacks Linx, but Linx turns his hypno beam on him, knocking him out. Linx enters his spaceship just as Hal arrives. Hal raises his bow and shoots an arrow into the vulnerable spot, the probic vent, on the back of Lynx's neck. Lynx's body leans onto the ship's controls, making it take off prematurely. Sarah Jane helps the doctor to his feet, and they all run out of the castle before the ship explodes.
I like how the actor, in his mind, he worked out which button to press.
Yes.
And so when he's falling, he just goes back up and presses.
It really looks like he's not accidentally doing it. It
Yeah.
really looked like, I'm dying, but I have to hit this button.
Yeah. That's what it looks like. It's like...
That's how I took it. I thought he was like,
Okay, I'll blow this place
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
but
I
in my
like that.
mind, it's like the actor,
Yeah.
picked a button and he stuck to it. And he said, I have to hit this
it was
button.
probably like, that's the only button that presses.
Yes, that's right.
So make sure you press that one.
And this also reminded me of something else that happened so much in the 70s, which is people fall unconscious so easily. There's that other example where the doctor's running through the corridor, meets the two guards, and all he does is pull one guard forward, and that guard falls unconscious. And the second guard, who's not even hit, just falls on top of the first guard unconscious.
Well, they're malnourished. That's like in the 80s and 90s. Everyone was snapping people's necks.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
Albert knows about that.
Oh, yeah.
And the doctor fighting Linx was pretty good. The hand-to-hand. Now he knows hand-to-hand combat.
Right,
He knows
right.
all
Oh, yeah.
that.
No, I really like this doctor.
And when Irongron?
Angron.
Irongron. But anyway, Irongron comes in, thinking that Linx bewitched his people.
Yeah.
And put him to sleep. I think he's killed. I think
Oh, from
because
that
was a
beam?
high beam.
Yeah,
He
I
wasn't
think so
just
too.
Knocked out. I think, yep, killed him.
Fried his brain or something.
Not that there was much to fry.
That's why...
And I love that they're showing that the Sontaran's ship, the door is closing, and Hal takes the shot. He lines up as
before.
the door is closing and gets it. So it's like he
Yes.
is a good archer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would Hal know that that's the weak
No.
point? No, he was just taking a shot
Yeah.
as the door was closing.
I
and
think-
just
yeah.
happened to be the right spot
Yes.
to
Yes.
hit.
So it looks like a target, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. It is circular.
Poetic justice.
Unless he was aiming for the head.
Oh, I was just going to disable him. Oh, well. I think we should all agree, though, that the best shot of the entire episode is when the castle explodes and it
Yes.
really looks like a cliff
Turns into a mountain.
exploding and
It's a
falling
different
down.
location entirely.
Wow. That is so 70s. I mean, you remember, I think even like $6 Million Man and shows of that time where it's like a car goes off the cliff and all of a sudden it blows up for no reason and it's always the same car and it's just like, okay,
It
you
was
pulled
lined
something.
up just right, though.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
really was. I bet.
And
that,
whenever it was like a lightning storm outside, it was always be like the same cloudy lightning going on. It's
Same
like
stock shot.
yeah, they just
I'm
pulled
sure
something out of the library.
like you were saying, the director or whatever, he had that footage already, and he
Yeah.
lined up the castle to match the footage.
No, I think he just grabbed that footage and didn't care what it looked like.
Yeah, I
and
didn't think it was. I mean, I guess it was kind of lined up, but I definitely was like, "Where'd those cliffs come from?" The ones behind the castle.
It's from the transmat beam that exploded.
yeah.
was
You've
there
never
a
seen a Sontaran ship explode before. That's what it looks like.
Why was there a tree on the roof all of a sudden?
So yeah.
I loved it though.
To me, it takes me back to childhood. I mean, it really is like, yeah, we watched it, and even back then, we went, huh? So
Did anyone care about the scullery maids or the cooking women?
No.
I know.
It's like they got everybody else out of the castle. No one went down there to tell them.
They hightailed it out of there.
They didn't eat the oatmeal.
They were in the living
She
quarters
snuck around.
outside of the
They
castle.
weren't allowed to eat the oatmeal.
It just
I don't know.
that's a good point.
they never mentioned them, so it's like the doctor doesn't care about them.
There's
What
a
about the
cutscene.
cooks on the Death Star? No
There was a
one talks
cutscene
about
with Hal. He ushered them out.
that. Right.
And then finally,
Maybe there was a cut scene where the cook was actually thinking to herself, that girl was right. Come on, ladies. And they all just left, thinking they got away with everything. They'll starve in that castle. They're on the mountain hill, and they see the explosion from a distance. Oh,
Then they go, I know a place. We'll go north to the wall.
right. Yeah.
no, they're going to go work with Lady Eleanor. She's pretty cool.
There you
Oh,
go.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
It is down the hall.
It's right there.
Across the yard. This is really just an episode of Neighbors. It's that episode of The Simpsons when George Bush moves across the street.
And finally, in the forest, the Doctor and Sarah Jane say their goodbyes to Hal, leaving him to explain things to Sir Edward.
That was the scene that reminded me of Robin Hood.
Yes.
Seeing
Yes.
Hal stand next to the TARDIS. I was like, I feel like I've seen this juxtaposition before. Man in green next to blue
And you have.
TARDIS.
Yeah.
And the ending is so abrupt. I was like, wait a minute, Doctor, aren't you going to ask Sarah to travel with you?
Yeah, she just
and,
went. There was no question.
And aren't
was
you
it.
guys going to go back to the Brigadier and be like, hey, we found your missing scientist? And
Well, they've all been
so
returned.
abrupt.
Very classic
Done.
Doctor Who.
And then
Because
would the
it would
next-
cost money to go back
Would
and
the
do
next serial,
Pick
did
up?
the next serial address
I don't think
any
so.
of this stuff?
Address
Or
the
was it
story plots? Probably not.
Yeah, or
but
was it
maybe
just Sarah's now traveling with him? And
Sarah is now just traveling with
a
him.
lot
I'm
of
sure.
TV back then just did that as well. Like it was like you accepted that the adventurers now are together. Like there wasn't a lot of that emotional
Yeah, it's not like-
relationship drama in a good way that we see today of people dealing with their feelings and stuff. They just, all right, now she's with them. Just accepted.
Back to your question, the next serial is Invasion. This is where the Doctor and Sarah return to London in present day, only to find the city strangely deserted, while nearby unit are dealing with a series of monster appearances. So
Well, that sounds like fun.
So they do go back and they work with unit again, but I don't know if they do directly address this.
I mean, I could see the Brigadier saying something like, wait, isn't she the imposter?
And then he's like,
he
no.
going, no, she's fine.
And he goes, oh,
And I bet you that's as much as they
and he's
dealt
like,
with it.
very
Plus,
good.
you don't
sir.
know too what gets cut out for time.
There's a lot of those classic episodes that are just boom, boom, boom. For it's almost like a paradox. They are so slow and long, and there's so much walking through corridors, crawling through trenches, and a lot of that transitional stuff that was very common and even goes on through 80s TV shows where it's like, I can't believe we're watching them go to where they need to go. But that's just how it was back then. For something like that, they were just like, oh, it's the end of the show, boom, done.
Some production stuff. There's a lot of firsts that happen in here, and some of them we've already discussed, like the new time tunnel effect, the diamond-shaped logo, Sarah Jane's first adventure.
Well, John
first
Smith,
mentioned.
has he used that before?
Yes, he has used that before. And there was something else that was the first. Oh, the Sontaran. Sontarans are the first time.
One interesting thing is Gallifrey was originally written as Gallifrey.
Okay.
And then they changed it to Gallifrey, and nobody ever says why. I just like to think that they thought it sounded too much like Galway in Ireland. So.
I did like that Sarah Jane met the Doctor in School Reunion the same way that she met him in this.
By doing something.
John Smith.
I'm sure that was intentional on the writer's
Agreed, but I
part.
like that. I like that tie-in.
Yeah. No, it's fun for the fans and for the classic fans.
And she does say, oh, I used to have a friend who went by
Yep.
that name.
Also, the guy that played Irongron, they originally casted Bob Hoskins as that character.
Really?
Yeah. And Bob Hoskins couldn't do it, so he recommended David Dacre, who played him.
I don't think he was bad. It was just...
No.
No, he did what he was told.
I actually don't think any of the main characters, did a good job for the most part. Oh, well, Bob Hoskins did that.
Different vibe. So let's go around and give our final thoughts of the Time Warrior serial. Josh.
You have a Time Warrior cereal?
Now comes with marshmallows.
Or is it
Stays crunchy. I don't know.
Gallifreyos.
Gallifreyos?
No, Santaro ends.
I
With
really,
probic vents.
I really liked it. I think it was important. It was good that I watched it at this point in my life, this point of a fan that I am.
It just sounds weird saying this point in my life.
Well, I can appreciate it on a number of levels that if I was just trying to watch some science fiction show, I would have written it off way back when. But I also think this is a good one to show a first time, like a new Who viewer, a classic. Like I this is the first time I have seen a classic, but I think if someone hadn't seen any and they were like, what is this show? What was it like back then? I think this is a good example.
Good.
I enjoyed it. It did remind me a lot of the radio dramas. Like it has kind of more of that pacing, especially with the serialization.
Yeah.
Where at the end of an episode, we're going to like have some big reveal or some big thing to make you a cliffhanger. To watch the next episode. Also, just TV of this time is more stagey, like almost theater that we just capture on tape or film.
A lot of it felt like a play.
Yeah. And so I mean, it was enjoyable, like to go back to that kind of storytelling that we don't see as much today. And the doctor's character is there. Very similar to today, and it was great seeing Sarah Jane being so strong, and with her connection to today's series.
I agree.
It was fun.
Yeah, I think it was good to watch as a new fan of Doctor Who. It helps me appreciate the Doctor and his journey, and it helps me appreciate Sarah Jane for sure. And I think I will go back and watch School Reunion again. And it helps me appreciate Rose, like seeing a companion from a classic series helps me appreciate Rose as a companion in the new series, and that was cool.
Yeah, Arlene.
I hope she can see this. I hope Arlene gets to see this. Talk to her about it. I had a hard time getting into the first 15 minutes, like a lot of us. It's just a different pacing, a different style.
I would say I had a hard time getting to the first 15 minutes of every part of this serial. I'm just like, oh, okay, here we go. Go continue.
So I'm glad that we picked this one so that we have to watch it so we can talk about it. Because it did have some great moments of the Doctor, great moments of Sarah Jane, some great moments of them together. It was serial, even like the old Flash Gordons, where the end of one episode was the beginning of the next episode. They would redo a scene, might have a slight variant. So then, this person shows up that you didn't see in the last bit of that scene. So that was nice, nostalgic. I wish they did more with Eleanor because I thought she was a great actress. She could have done a lot with that part, and I wish they would have fleshed that out because I think that would have been a lot more fun to watch.
I didn't think about her at all until you started to talk about her, and then I realized.
So, I liked it, and it's different. It's a different time period of how they made television then. So you just have to be open to that, and sometimes you're not. Then start it again later on and see if just sit through it for a bit, and you'll get engrossed in it.
I like it a lot. Because of the characters, I can forgive a lot if the characters are true and interesting. And the Doctor is great. Sarah Jane is great. The Brigadier is great. Eleanor, Hal. I mean, I like all these characters. Even the silliness of Irongron. I mean, I would love to have just a list of all his insults and, mangy cur. They just go on, and that's a lot of fun. It is a good one for someone who is familiar with modern Who. If they expressed an interest in wanting to see the classic, this might be a good one to show them. It's 4 episodes.
It's quick.
Because there are serial episodes that are longer. One goes to 10. That's a really long one. Again, I like to tell people that, we now have a fast forward button. So, if you're just thinking, they're walking through corridors, you can just fast forward through the corridors, and that really does. Not all the time, but sometimes you kind of, by the time you're at the 4th episode and you're like, you're going down to the dungeon again. Okay, boom, And if you think you might miss something, I always go back and listen because I want to hear the character bits. So, that's kind of what I do with a lot of these Doctor Who's because I watched that 10 episode serial. And there was a lot of fast forwarding.
Which Doctor was that?
The second Doctor. It was actually the led up to his regeneration. And it was an interesting story. It was an interesting concept that went on so very long. So it's good. I like it.
For me, I like the Time Warrior. I mean, I liked it enough that I bought the DVD long before we started doing this podcast. So there was just something about that first appearance of a Sontaran and Sarah Jane that really spoke to me at the time. And when we started doing this, I was like, we should show this episode. There's a lot from here that carries over into the current series. So, it's a lot of that stuff. And, me being like this continuity police person, I like,
I didn't see much blue.
It was.
I like it when shows are.
Yeah, it's
continuous in the writing. It bugs me like. There's even when I was like a kid watching television,
it's like that's
shows where I would be like, a character would be like, I've never had a brother before, and I'm like, what are you talking about? In season 1, you had a half brother and you had a sister. And I seem to be the only
Happy Days.
one. Yeah. So that's cool that you liked this. I didn't like it so much, but I did appreciate the tie-ins to the series today.
It's definitely not for everybody, and I can totally understand that. And I mean, that's one of the reasons that we chose this one to do. I mean, if you guys aren't so into the Doctor Who classic episode, you can skip this and, not really miss anything.
You would want to say that at the beginning of our episode, not the end of it.
Too late. For me, it feels like, let's put it this way. I'm reading a comic book now, and then it says, please see issue something something for this particular event. And that's what made me want to research this and find it. And then when I did, I wasn't disappointed. So I think, it's kind of like a reward for people that have kept with the continuity. And it shows that this is still being addressed in the current season.
I like how you said you might not particularly like it, but you have a greater appreciation for the current show that you do like now.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's, it kind of served a purpose that was positive.
Yeah,
I like that.
and I can relate more with classic fans, like when they get excited about certain things in the new series, where for me, it's new, but for them, it's a callback, it's a throwback, and they're like, oh, I'm so glad that they're like staying true to some of the classic plot points and some of the classic characters. Yeah, it's cool.
And one day Arlene will have to join us for one of these classic quick trip in the Tardis. episodes.
Yeah.
Our quick, air quotes, quick trips.
Well, I mean, it's a 4-part serial, so.
Well, people have a fast forward button just like I do.
So thanks everybody for joining us for this quick trip in the TARDIS. We will see you next time when the future becomes the present. I'm not ready.
You have one job to do.
All right, now I'm ready.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady. You can find his work at theuniverseexplodes.com.
You can find this show in several places. Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who, the longest running sci-fi show in history, and especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman, Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer, and all of those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord. Your work continues to inspire and entertain.